Hello, everyone.
Hey, everybody.
Welcome to Becoming One Flesh.
Welcome to Becoming One Flesh. I love it. I love it. Yeah.
So today we're talking about being busy in ministry but empty at home. And we have touched on this topic before, talking about how there are times where you can be so caught up in the doing of ministry and the church and different things like that, that you may find yourself not giving as much effort and as much time to your family as you need to. And so next thing you know, years and months went by, and you've basically missed out on your family.
Yeah.
You missed out on your children growing up. You may have missed out on connecting with your wife and so on and so forth. And you can't get that time back.
No, you can't.
You spaced that.
No, I'm just looking at the screen.
Yeah, the connection may act up. We're gonna do the best we can with it.
Yeah, you're right, babe. Because when you told me this morning about the topic we were going to talk about today, it kind of took me back for a minute, because I remember when I was at this ministry. Well, we both were at the ministry, but I was at this ministry, and I was the musician or the musical director or whatever you want to call it for the ministry. I stayed at the church more than I stayed home. Practicing and setting up equipment and doing all that stuff and practicing the praise team and practicing on the getting the music together and getting my keyboard and stuff right. I kind of neglected you. Not that I wasn't home, but I was at church when I was home, and had to come to realize some things. Wait a minute, the pastor's beckoning call. Whenever, whatever this needed to be done, this Samuel. And I was doing that, not really understanding that I wasn't being what I needed to be at my house. It caused a rift, but I can tell that kind of rubbed you the wrong way.
Yeah, it was a lot because required a lot of your time. It was like but 3 or so days a week,
maybe 4.
Yeah, he had to be there because he had responsibilities he had to do. And I think with us being believers and then there are some who may be in ministry, maybe they're pastors, or maybe you're a deacon, or whatever the case is. Maybe you have some kind of obligation in ministry, but there are times where we can put that as number one, and then everything else goes to the wayside. And I can remember some years ago when Dr. Miles Monroe was living, and he had a conference in Virginia Beach. And I can remember we were there and listening to him talk. And one of the things he talked about was how the body of Christ belongs, that's Jesus, it belongs, that's his bride. That the church doesn't belong to the pastors or who else, or the people don't belong to the pastors, that belongs to him. And so he was getting on the leaders there, because it was like a leadership type conference, and he was really getting on the leaders there by how they're not really taking priority with their family over the things of God. And I think because we say as believers that we put God first in everything, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Of course he comes first in our lives, and we seek him in everything that we do. But yet I think some people mean that I can neglect everything else because wayside relationships was that he didn't design it to be that way. That because when we come together, you're really one flesh. You're coming together as one, and no one should take priority over your wife, over your family, no building, no people, no organization should ever be able to be more important than your own family, because at the end of the day, if your family was a walk away, then who would you have left?
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? And it takes time and it takes nurturing to be able to have a marriage and have a family, have a family to be on one accord, and for you all to be able to grow and learn together. It takes time to be able to do that, because there are some people, I believe, that don't go on vacation.
Freezing up a little bit, but I'm here.
Yeah, some people they don't do vacations. They don't have life outside of going to church. So they in church 2 and 3 days a week, but then the family's never been anywhere together, or they missing birthdays or events. And so to me, it comes that you will pay a price for it if you're more concerned about maintaining an image. It'll end up costing you in the end.
I think, because baby, we grow up in religion. Mm-hmm. We don't grow up in kingdom, and religion doesn't teach you to cherish your family first. Mm-hmm. It says God first. Yes. And we're not saying we don't serve God first, but what I'm saying is that religion doesn't teach you the kingdom method mm-hmm. of marriage and ministry. It only teaches you ministry, right. ministry, and we get inundated with that. So we feel, well, I got to make sure I had to do this, got to make sure, and neglect your family, and it causes such a great rift, mm-hmm. Like I said, when I was at that ministry doing all those things, and you would be at home and baby, I got to go do this here. I got to do that. I got to go here. I got to do these things. And I neglected you. But it wasn't until one day I woke up and said, yo, man, I'm doing this no more. I'm going to be home with my wife and set a boundary, like you said. Mm-hmm. There needs to be a boundary set.
Yeah, definitely needs to be boundaries that are set in that work. I think also it can be that people's identity is so wrapped into ministry, they don't realize that they're a husband or a wife first. And that person didn't marry, the minister. Because when I met Joseph, he was already doing ministry. He'd been in ministry for a very long time. And even one time I remember I was coming to see you. Mm-hmm. And he had a men's conference he had to prepare for. So he was fasting and praying, and we weren't able to see each other that day. And I had to understand that. But I think sometimes people, we put the title first before I guess you could say the assignment.
Get off my toes.
We put the title ahead of everything else. Not saying that because we weren't married at the time. So I'm not trying to shade or anything, but we get the title mixed up with the person. And I don't think that should be, because if God called him, let's say, for example, I'm just giving an example that God called him the pastor. When I want to talk to him, I'm not trying to talk to the pastor.
I know that's right.
I don't want to talk to Pastor Joe. Mm-hmm. I want to talk to Joseph, my husband.
Yes, yes.
And people don't know how to differentiate that we believe is all in one, and sometimes we don't know how to be what our spouses need. But we are everything to everybody else. Wow. Yet we can give our spouses what's left over.
Wow. The leftovers, huh?
Yeah, because I was looking at a clip earlier, and we're going to play a clip in a little bit and kind of respond to it. But I was looking at a clip earlier, and it was this guy that was a pastor, and him and his wife was leaving out the front of the church. They done had service, and he was like, well, I'm going to see you at the house later. She was like, why? We just came from church. You just preached and everything. Oh, well, there's something going on with one of the members, so I need to go over there and see about them. And she was like, okay. So she went home and everything. And then he came home home late that night because he had meetings and had like, but we don't time together. He was like, look, I don't want to hear no gripe. I don't want to hear you whining. I have things I have to do. And then soon as he got home, now they in the bed laying down, then the phone rings. It's a member that husband is in the hospital. So then he gets out of bed
and goes, to
the hospital. And she was like, but you just got home. Well, they in the hospital, they need me and whatnot. And so he ended up missing the daughter's birthday and all kind of stuff. And she actually told him at the end, she said, look, you putting all of that ahead of everything else, ahead of us, me, your kids and everything. And so she ended up calling the pastor, and they had a meeting with her husband and herself. And the pastor told him, he said, look, nothing should ever come between your family, first and family, period. And I believe times a lot of leaders don't delegate properly. So they're not able to delegate to the other people, and which would give them time to be able to have time for their families.
Okay.
But they end up doing everything themselves.
Yeah, that's a good point, because, back up a little, that even if I was called to pastor, and we got this old thing about First Lady, you shouldn't be tied to the way you are obligated, because I remember we was listening, I think it's Sir Walter, when he said that his brother told the church, look, I'm the pastor. She's my wife. She's not a first lady. She's not tied into all of this. If you have situations or problems that you want to deal with, and come to her. Because what it does, it ties everybody, the whole house, to the ministry. Instead of the ministry being tied to us, and we have to be in a place to where, look, love you, the minister's church, but she white, family comes first. You see what I'm saying? And I can't handle that, because, like I said, we've been taught otherwise. It's now time to kind of deal with it from what it really is. Because like I said, I remember, I kind of neglected my wife for a long time. I was being at the church instead of being at home.
Yeah, because we can get caught up in being needed, and being that is detriment. That sometimes it can be, and I don't think we see it that way. And it's not for every case, and it's not to say every leader is this way, but sometimes people can use you. They can use you, and they can take advantage of the fact that you're willing to help and you want to be a help. Sometimes that can be taken advantage of. I'm not saying everybody does this, but there are times it can be, and then you won't find that out until after you've been used up. So it wasn't really me as a person. It was about what I can give or the service I provided.
Right.
And so that's where the dangers can cross. But we want to try to share a clip real quick. We're going to comment to real quick before we go. Stopping points. First time. So if it's a meetup, please give us. And if the internet cut, please give us that part.
Yeah.
We're going to do the best we can with this. So let me see. All right, I got that. I wanted to kind of tell you all what's going on in this clip. So in this clip, there's a guy. You see the guy there. He's talking about how he's in ministry and how he has been spending a lot of time in ministry, studying the word and all these things like that. And he feels that he has surpassed his wife spiritually, I guess you could say, because he realized that he's been caught up in the role of being in ministry. And he's basically asking, how can he balance things as being a husband? So I'm going to forward over to, I believe, 38 and just respond to what the pastor tells him. Okay.
Maturity is the ability to balance. No one has more time than the other. Anything that takes you away from your family, from God, is dangerous.
So he was telling him here that anything that takes you away from your family is dangerous. And he was saying that being mature is the ability to be able to balance. So what you think about that statement?
Yeah, like I said, I didn't have a balance. I was so caught up in the ministry, like you said, being wanted, being needed, and moving forward, that I neglected the real thing. Because let's think about it. A man's first ministry is his home.
He's going to get into that too. Yes.
It's his home, And when we get caught up in the building and ministering to other people, then we don't minister in our homes, And I got caught up in that. I'll be the first to say I did. I got caught up in that.
Okay. Well, let's go to the next part right here.
Husband is a priest, is a prophet, is a provider, is a protector of a family. How will you protect them in your absence? That was the mistake of Jethro.
So he said that a husband is a priest, prophet, protector. So how can you protect if you're not there?
You can't. I mean, that's just the bottom line. You can't, and you find yourself protecting other people instead of protecting your family. You find yourself ministering to other people instead of ministering to your family. And it's not a bad thing when your family says, where are you? Why are you so engrossed in this and you leaving us behind? That's something, like I said, I had to come to the place. I said, well, dog, man, I'm out here ripping and running and doing this and that and everything for the ministry, for the church, but I'm not doing nothing for my wife.
So can you talk about that part about the husband being the priest, the prophet, and all that? Can you explain that a little bit? Yeah,
you are the priest of your home. It's your responsibility to minister, to address situations spiritually, and not only spiritually, but to address situations regardless, because that's your responsibility. You have to be when scripture says that the man is the head of the house, well, the head means that the priesthood, the ministry, the protector, and I'm not talking about protecting from a physical place, but protecting from a spiritual place, the whereas you intercede on behalf of your family, you intercede on behalf of the things that need to be done. You don't negate that responsibility to somebody else or somewhere else. When your household, your ministry, your real ministry, a man's real ministry, especially a married man, is his family. Bottom line. That's why Sarah was able to call Abraham Lord, because he understood his place. Even though now he made a mistake, we're not going to get into all that, but he knew his place. So therefore, he was the priest of the house. He was the prophet of the house. He was the protector. He was the provider for the house. He was everything. And until we as men understand those things, then we'll continue to lean in other directions.
Okay. That's good. So let me get this little
What
part.
You feel about that, though?
No, that's why I was asking you to kind of break that part down, because when he said that, I've heard you say it before.
Yeah.
All right. Let's go to the next part.
Do God's work and still be imbalanced. God does not teach you to balance. Mentors teach you how to balance.
How about that?
Say that again.
He said God doesn't teach you how to balance. Mentors teach you how to balance.
Yeah, you need mentors. But you know what? If the mentor has not been mentored, then he can't mentor you. That's the crazy part about it, because there are a lot of pastors or ministers or whatever, preachers or whatever you want to call them, that haven't had the right mentorship themselves. So therefore, they don't give those that are men that are in the body, they don't give them the right guidance and the right teaching to show them what they need to do, that they might be mentors in their own home.
That's true.
It's there. how can I say this here? And I'm not trying to be offensive.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm saying is that men need to understand, and I ministered on that before, what manhood is as a priest in your house.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas now you can mentor, you can't mentor your sons, you can't mentor your daughters, you can't mentor your wife, you can't do none of these things. How can a woman submit to a man that's not submitted?
Mm-hmm.
You know, because we think that we're submitted to that building or to that ministry, that we're not submitted to God. I mean, it might be a little deeper than what people want to realize, but then you have to be submitted to the Father to the point to where as you walk as the Father in your home,
Mm-hmm.
you walk as the Father, as the priest of your house, as the high priest in your house. So until we come to that place of understanding, then it's fruit time.
Amen. That is the truth. That's the truth. And it's the last little part right here.
Danger when you are very close to God and far from your family. Because when your wife says that, you are doing the same mistake Adam did. Adam became very close to his work and away from his wife. And the wife ended up having conversation with the devil.
That's what I was saying. That's exactly what I was saying. Yeah.
Yeah. You end up being far away, like our Adam was. He was far away from his wife.
Even though he was right there.
He was right there. And she ended up having conversation.
Yeah.
So this clip came from Bruce Edwards, and just wanted to acknowledge that. It was a good clip. He gave some good advice, and we just kind of wanted to comment a little bit on that. But just to sum it up, be sure to have balance in your marriage. You know, you can't, we shouldn't treat one another like projects
or property.
Yeah. And we have to know how to balance, because at the end of the day, you're a husband and wife first over everything else. Everybody else may need you and may desire from you, but if you don't know how to balance it all out, it can actually cost you in your marriage and cost you your family. Because there are many people who do not have the family they once had before, because they didn't know how to balance everything out. They didn't know how to give proper time to one another, and you know, and knowing how to say no, because some people don't know how to say no.
That was my problem.
Oh, okay.
I didn't know how to say no, because I was more committed to the man of God than I was committed to the ways of God. Because the ways of God says, say no. The ways of God says, that's your family. The ways of God says that you're the priest of your house. The ways of God says that your wife, your family needs you more than this building or this church. You understand? Because you have to understand that you are the church. But because we don't understand that we are the church, then we try to be committed to the church. You know, and I wanted to apologize to you. I never told you this before. I want to apologize to you. It was years ago, but I'm sorry that I did that. I really am sorry that I did that, because it was like this was more important than you were. You know, you didn't say anything about it. You kind of hinted a few things. You didn't say anything about it, but I want to apologize to you right now. You know, it's been years ago, but I want to apologize to you because I was so committed to the man of God that I wasn't to the woman of God that the Father gave me.
Oh, I forgive you.
Yeah,
for sure.
You know, because it was wrong. It was dead wrong. You know, I was so trying to, I got to make sure this is right. Got to make sure, baby, I got to get up here 7 o'clock in the morning. I got to go set all this stuff up. I got to do these things. I got to practice these people. I got to make sure things. But then my house wasn't right.
I forgive you.
She forgive me, y'all.
Definitely. So we learn.
Yeah.
You know, we live and learn. Yeah. So we hope that this was a blessing to you all, that you were able to take some nuggets from this. this is something, as we said, if you don't have balance, you can't have balance.
Yeah.
Talk to your wife or your husband about it, about what's going on, and how can you all come up with a plan to where you're not missing out events with the children. You're not missing family time. You're not, sacrificing vacation and stuff. Now, we know sometimes emergencies happen and you may have to fill in and things like that. Some things we can't control, but if you can control those things, then it'd be good to give it to your family and see, how can I better serve y'all? How can we spend more time together? What is it that y'all want us to do that we're not able to do? Yeah. So we wanted to actually share about I had this thing made for our vlog channel, just to let y'all know that you can be sure to follow us on YouTube, the Samuels.
Yes, me and you.
Look up Joe and Yo. We're on YouTube, and you can follow our daily living, just daily life as we do things, go to appointments and all this other stuff. You can definitely follow us on there. We would love to have you be a part of our online family.
Yes, yes.
And I think that's all we have.
Okay.
We hope y'all enjoyed this.
Y'all have a wonderful day.
We will see y'all on the next one.
Bye-bye.
Bye.